Well, good morning, everyone. My name is MightyStream, and I'm going to do your November the 12th, just for today, in a meditation. I almost forgot what day it was. All right, November the 12th. Let's go ahead and get into that meditation. It's entitled Our Own Story. When we honestly tell our own story, someone else may identify with us. That comes from the basic text, page 98. Many of us have heard truly captivating speakers at Narcotics Anonymous conventions. We remember the audience alternating between tears of identification and joyous hilarity. Someday we may think, I'm going to be a main speaker at a convention too. Well, for many of us, that day has yet to arrive. Once in a while, we may be asked to speak at a meeting near where we live. We might speak at a small convention workshop. But after all this time, we're still not hot convention speakers, and that's okay. We've learned that we too have a special message to share, even if it's only at a local meeting with 15 or 20 addicts in attendance. Each of us has only our own story to tell. That's it. We can't tell anyone else's story. Every time we get up to speak, many of us find all the clever lines and funny stories seem to disappear from our heads. But we do have something to offer. We carry the message of hope. We can and do recover from our addiction. And that's hope, or excuse me, that is hope. But it says, and that's enough. Just for today, I will remember that my honest story is what I share the best. Today, that's enough. Let's take a moment of silence, followed by the wee version of Serenity Prayer. Moment of silence now, please. Thank you, God. Grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the podcast today. I'm talking about the Just for Today in a meditation for November the 12th. And I just want to welcome all of the new subscribers that may or may not be receiving notifications to listen to this regularly. Thank you very much. I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous. I have been for over 30 years. I have never relapsed. I've had several sponsors, though. I still do service work in person and virtually speaking. This is a service that I chose to provide to those individuals that just like to hear the meditation read, as well as maybe read it as they go along. Because many people still have not gone back to going to meetings, and they're not really engaging anyone other than maybe their sponsor, even if that, in regards to another voice in their head that is speaking recovery to them. So I'm providing this service because I feel that is something that is still important coming off of the pandemic. Okay. So if you need an NA meeting, I would recommend that you get to one in person or virtually. This is not an NA meeting. This is an NA member sharing the time that she does her meditation with others. I call this the H.O.O.D Recovery Services. H.O.O.D is an acronym that stands for Hope Offered on Demand. Okay. So we're talking about our own story. And immediately I started thinking about all of the hot shots that were actually going around speaking when I first got into the program. And seemed like every convention I would make, they would be at. And that had a lot more to do with the fact that it was, within a certain radius of conventions that I could drive to. And they, friends with other people on the committee, or in many instances, their story was just that powerful, and people wanted to make sure that they offered that to people coming to their conventions. Um, I also thought, I don't think it anymore because it's not a desire, but I often thought that I would be a speaker at a main convention too. I can count probably on, in 30 years, I can count on two hands the number of times I've been invited to a convention to speak. And on one hand, the number of times that I've done workshops. So it's not something that really happens for the majority of us. People will invite you to their functions to speak oftentimes. But the main message that an addict carries, whether they receive an invitation to speak or not, is their own story that they were able to stop using and stay clean. And some of that, no matter what, right? Some of those occurrences where they didn't use no matter what are more powerful than even how they got to the program. It just really depends on who's listening and what it is their spirit is seeking. If you have someone that is chronically homeless, trying to stay clean in an area such as the one that I live in, where the winter is going to be a rough winter. There's no doubt about it. Being homeless in this particular city is not going to be an easy do. Matter of fact, there's a lot of 501c3s that make a lot of money, grant money, just for offering to have warming centers where people can come in during the day and not be treated less than, but come in during the day, receive warm coffee, and be able to get out of the freezing cold, right? So I live in an area that it definitely isn't Los Angeles, where it's warm all day, but also you would have in that type of situation where it gets too hot, right? So if someone is chronically homeless and they're hearing someone share their message about living under a bridge, or they're sharing their story about how they were homeless and stayed clean during that time, that is something that they would enjoy. That would touch their spirit. If you're someone that is a relationship addict and you move from one relationship to the next in the name of searching out love, and it's never worked because you haven't been able to stabilize your disease of addiction, you would be interested in the person that is sharing that type of message, right? So I think that what makes a person's message touch another person's heart is the message that comes from the heart, the message that is the truth, and the message that comes from the heart. People like to fabricate and oftentimes, you know, exaggerate their stories for effect, but I don't believe that that's necessary at all. I think that you have a message, and the very next time or opportunity that you're given to share that message, whether it be at a meeting or at a function, I think that you should do it, because not everyone is given an opportunity to share a message besides just sharing. I shouldn't say just sharing, but sharing at a meeting, right? When it's open share. Not everyone is given an opportunity to carry the message. You will find some people aren't organized enough to search for a person that is willing to come carry a message to their meeting. And so you might find them turning to you frequently, but it's only because they're not handling the position properly, right? They're not searching in time. They're not giving themselves enough time. I don't think a meeting needs to have a speaker every week, right? Because a lot of times you're not going to get people that are going to travel from outside of your city. And pretty much within a city, I know in my community, we all know one another's story because we've heard it so many times. And we do support each other. Like when a person is speaking at a retreat or they're speaking at one of our functions, a lot of times people show up to make sure that there's some support for when you're sharing. But we've just gotten so used to one another, right? And a lot of times people in charge of the programming for people, getting people to share, they're not stretching themselves. It's kind of like just something that they do. Oh, well, anyone ought to be grateful that we even asked them to share their story. No, that's not the case. That's not the case, especially when you keep tapping the same individual to share their story over and over, right? So be creative. If you're given an opportunity, I would say to do it. And remember that it's the honest story that you will be able to share best. I enjoyed this. There's a lot more to it than I'm going into, but it definitely is a good topic. Hope you have a beautiful day on purpose.